Jared Johnson joins us this morning for Health Monday, and we're kind of a week past our normal schedule for Health Monday, but it was a busy week, wasn't it, buddy?
It was a busy week. Been down at the coast for a pharmacy conference and got back, had to fill a lot of prescriptions.
Talk about, there was a big honor for your dad, Danny, last week as well.
Big honor for Dad. There is something called the Alabama Pharmacy Hall of Fame, and it has, as you might imagine, people who've done great things in our profession. And Dad was inducted into that last week at a conference down at Point Clear. Mm-hmm. So we took the whole family down. You can imagine the logistics of that, but we had a great time, and it's a big honor for Dad. You know, I think one of the biggest things that he did was he helped to start an organization called APCI, American Pharmacy Cooperative. At the time, it was Alabama Pharmacy Cooperative, but what it was originally created to be was a buying group for independent pharmacies so that we could put our efforts together and buy medication for cheaper than we would have been able to buy individually. It turned into much more than that. They negotiate our insurance contracts, they help us to audit some insurance companies, just on and on and on and on. But that was a huge deal for him, and real happy for him.
And yeah, it's a huge deal for the entire family because there were a lot of pharmacies and pharmacists who were involved in that, and to be named to the Alabama Pharmacy Hall of Fame, you know, it's kind of like a football Hall of Fame or basketball, but this is pharmacy.
That's right, that's right. Maybe not as well known, but among circles of pharmacists, Dad's really well known, and for good reason.
No doubt about it. Well, I know you guys had your anniversary celebration a couple of weeks ago. Have you recovered from that any? Is that why you took a vacation?
That's why we took a vacation. We survived the 15th anniversary. I was telling him, I think we gave away maybe 500 or so barbecue sandwiches. We sold every product there was off the dollar wall, met a lot of people we'd never seen before, and got to reconnect with a lot of old friends. So it was a fantastic day, but suffice to say we were worn out.
15 years, you know, your dad actually was a part of starting this as well.
Oh yeah, Dad and James in 2003, and so we're happy to celebrate that. Mom and Dad were there with us all day. They got to talk to a lot of people they hadn't seen in a while, so that was a real nice thing.
Well, let's talk about, of course, yesterday was Father's Day, and some of us, we don't have our fathers still here with us on this earth. A lot of people do. And we're talking about this morning men's health. And first of all, Jared, us men, we don't like to go to doctors much at all.
Maybe that's where we should start with men's health, and that is we actually do need physicians, particularly if you're over the age of 30 or so. Annual checkups are very important, and at the pharmacy we're kind of looking for people who come in who have a question about this or a question about that. Sometimes I like to ask them, who's your physician? And when they say I don't have one, try to help them find one, because we all need to have that contact so that we can have annual checkups.
And you know, us guys, we don't like to talk about some things, you know,
That's right.
and this morning we're going to kind of delve into it, and you guys just kind of listen up and take notes. But some of the topics we're talking about this morning, you begin and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. I thought we might talk about BPH to begin with. BPH is just an acronym for benign prostatic hyperplasia. That's a lot of fancy words, but really all it means is enlargement of the prostate. And what happens when a person has BPH is the prostate gets enlarged. I know you guys probably aren't familiar with this, but the prostate sits right next to the bladder. And the urethra, which is the tube that urine flows out of from the bladder, goes right in the middle of the prostate. So when the prostate gets enlarged, it squeezes on the urethra, makes it more difficult for a person to urinate. And so that's the basis of what BPH is. And as people get older, particularly after age 40, even more so as they get older, the prostate goes larger and larger. People have more difficult time urinating as time goes on.
I have a friend who's having prostate surgery today, and you know, as you grow older, the percentages go up. That this might be a real issue.
They do go up, and I'm glad you said that, because for minor cases of BPH, we start with all kinds of medications that help to either shrink the prostate or to relax the bladder muscles, things that make it easier to urinate. If BPH gets worse and worse, there are some procedures that could be had and maybe that's what your friend's doing, but I do want to make sure to differentiate between that and prostate cancer. Actually, BPH is not a factor in risk for prostate cancer. So there are all kinds of procedures that can be done to shrink the prostate, but again, that would be different from procedures that a person would undergo if they have cancer.
A lot of us guys, we listen to a lot of sports radio talk shows, and one of the commercials on radio, especially with talk radio and men's sports talk shows, is erectile dysfunction, and that's something us guys say, oh no, let's don't talk about that, but let's get into it this morning.
Well, nobody wants to talk about that, but erectile dysfunction, or ED, a lot of people call it just for short, is a very real thing, and it causes problems for men emotionally. It causes problems in men's relationship with their spouses. And it's a very, very real thing. Of course, it's embarrassing because nobody likes to talk about that. But honestly, men, if you're having trouble in this area, you need to get over it. And you need to be willing to talk to your pharmacist, talk to your physician about the options that are out there.
And a good part about the pharmacy and you guys is all this conversation, this counseling is stayed in that room. It's very private.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You guys have been in the pharmacy, you know that we have over by the wall a private area where we can talk where nobody can hear. We even have a private consultation room that we can go in if that would make you feel better for more sensitive matters. You know, the issue with erectile dysfunction is there's a number of factors that are involved in sex and a man being able to get an erection. It's not all physical, it's partly emotional. It might have to do with stress, it might have to do with your health conditions, all kinds of things that can lead to it, and your physician will need to get to the bottom of that. There are conditions that need to be treated with medicines that have nothing to do with erectile dysfunction that might make it better for you. So a number of things to talk about there.
And this too, maybe as you get older, it becomes more prominent?
Oh yeah, absolutely becomes more prominent. As we age, just the aging process itself, but as we age, we develop more conditions and we take more medications. And if you have, for example, diabetes or you have heart disease is a big one, because if your heart is not pumping blood properly throughout your body, then guess what? It's also not pumping blood properly to your penis, and that's the cause of erectile dysfunction in the first place. So we get older, we develop more conditions, we take more medications. There are medications that can interfere with the blood flow and such to cause erectile dysfunction. And so we have to get to the bottom of the cause for each person.
What could be some of the medicines that would affect one with erectile dysfunction?
Well, any kind of medicine that dilates the blood vessels. There's a certain kind of medications called nitrates, for example. They're fantastic medications, and they're made to dilate the blood vessels in the heart. So if a person has angina, or that's another word for chest pain, if a person has chest pain because they have some sort of blockage or narrowing of the blood vessels in the heart, they'll take these medications called nitrates to dilate the blood vessels. Well, that makes blood flow to the rest of the parts of the body more difficult. And so those medicines cannot be taken in combination with our ED medicines.
We're talking about men's health this morning on Health Monday, and Jerry Johnson is our guest this morning. And this next word is a word I've heard said many ways, and I'm just going to leave it with you to pronounce the word and what it means.
Yeah, testosterone. Testosterone is actually closely linked with the first two things that we talked about, and testosterone is something that men produce naturally that we have to have. But as we get older, starting at age 30 or 40, somewhere in that range, the amount of testosterone that we produce each year naturally declines by about 1% per year. And so low testosterone levels are extremely common. And low testosterone levels, you won't know it unless you have a blood test, but some of the ways you might recognize it are your body has less muscle mass because testosterone is involved in the formation of muscle mass. You may have more fat, particularly in the breast area, because testosterone is involved in fat distribution. You may have less of a sex drive, which goes back to what we just talked about, because testosterone is involved in libido, in our sex drive. And so you can see that it's closely related to some of these other problems, it has a profound impact on our life. And so if a man's experiencing any of those symptoms, they definitely need to talk to their doctor and get their level checked.
Yeah, and even before you go to your doctor, check with Jared or Jacob and just kind of let them in on what may be going on. They may be able to guide you even more. These topics we talked about this morning are just some of the tips for men's health. And you know, as we get older, Jared, we tend to pick up more weight. We don't feel as well as we did when we were younger, and the audience that we're reaching today is probably 40 and up. So that's certainly something we need to take note of as well.
That's right. And when you're talking about really treatments for any of these or lifestyle changes that would help you with any of this, you go look it up, you'll see. Every single one of them involves exercise and getting in better shape. Every single one of them involves stopping smoking. For example, smoking can cause constriction of the blood vessels, may make it harder to get an erection. Stop alcohol, or at least stop excessive alcohol. Every single one of these that we're talking about can be affected by that. So we're really just talking about regular old being healthy tips, helping us with these problems that we're talking about today.
And before we go this morning, these health tips for men basically, but they can apply to ladies as well. This week, temperatures in the 90s all week long. A lot of people headed to the beaches and the Gulf Coast and that kind of thing. And you know, we can get burned in a hurry. A lot of us are light-skinned and light hair, or at least we used to be light hair, and the sun can affect some more than it does others.
Oh, sure. And I'm learning that myself. I have to have a hat on every time I go out now, very quick to sunburn. So sun care at this time of year is as important as it gets. And we want to make sure that we have proper amount of protection in our sunscreen. So if you want to go buy SPF 5 or 10 sunscreen so that you can get that really good looking tan, it may not be enough protection for you. So definitely stop and talk to us. I want to add something I totally forgot to say real quick. And this is very important because probably you guys have all heard or seen the commercials for all of the medications for erectile dysfunction. You got the people in the bathtub on Cialis, and they got Viagra, and they got, why am I forgetting the name of the one that starts with an L? Anyway, temporary amnesia. Those medications at one time were $50 or $60 per pill. Oh, wow. And you know, at that point, you got to make the decision: do I really want to try to have sex bad enough to spend $60 per pill? Fortunately, in the last few years, there has been a generic version of the drug that's in Viagra, and now you can get it for just a few dollars per pill. So I want to encourage you, if this is something you haven't visited or haven't wanted to treat because of the cost of the medication, just want you to know it's gone way down. So I'd love for you to come talk to us about that.
Now, these medicines that you talk about, they're prescription medicines, are they?
Prescription only, absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because there are medications that are available over the counter. There are herbal medications that are touted as treatments for erectile dysfunction. Those things can be very dangerous, and you never want to mess with them outside of the supervision of a physician, because they may have some very serious interactions with other medicines that you take and may be dangerous.
All right, Jared Johnson, our guest this morning on Health Monday, sponsored by Marble City Pharmacy. Jared, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot.
We got more Daybreak just ahead. Don't go away.